Rich people have discovered the formula for building wealth that most people never figure out. And after spending the last 2 decades immersing myself in the field of personal finance and getting to know some of the wealthiest and most successful people in the Bay Area, I've discovered that rich people think about money completely and fundamentally different than the average person. What they all have in common is actually their mindset. It's so fundamentally different that if you simply adopt these same thought patterns, you can completely transform your financial future. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 mindset shifts that separate rich people from those who stay financially stuck, and exactly how you can start thinking like a rich person today. Okay, so the first mindset shift that will change everything is understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. This is the one concept that really stuck with me from the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it's completely changed how I think about every purchase that I make. Most people don't even use this distinction. They just buy stuff for the sake of buying stuff. But here's the thing, every single thing that you spend money on falls into one of 2 categories. Number 1, it either puts money in your pocket over time, or number 2, it takes money out of your pocket over time. So let me give you an example. A few years back, I was debating whether or not to buy a nicer car. I was looking at this Mercedes that was around $60,000 retail. Now, the average shopper might think to themselves, well, I can afford the monthly payment, so why wouldn't I buy this car? But if you've watched this channel, you should know that cars depreciate very quickly. And basically, what I'm trying to say is buying a new car is like lighting money on fire. The car is then a liability. Every month, it costs you money in the form of insurance, gas, maintenance, the aforementioned depreciation. It's basically a $60,000 investment that really isn't an investment at all. It just takes money out of your pocket. But what if instead of the $60,000 car, I took that same money and put it as a down payment on a rental property? Now that property could start generating some rental income every single month, and therefore money is flowing into my pocket, and that's what we call an asset. Rich people have this figured out. They buy things that make them money, not things that cost them money. Now, I'm not saying you can never buy nice things. I drive a nice car as well, but the key here is understanding the difference and making conscious choices about when you're buying assets versus liabilities. So here's what you can do before any major purchase. I like to ask myself, will this put money in my pocket or will it take money out of my pocket? If it takes money out, that's not the worst problem ever. You just have to ask yourself if it's within your budget and if it's worth it for you. You might also want to ask yourself if you have enough assets generating you income to justify this purchase. I think that this mindset shift will literally change how you look at everything, including your phone, your clothes, your home. Everything becomes a conscious decision about whether you're building wealth or just spending money. Now, once you start thinking in assets versus liabilities, you'll probably start to naturally think about how you generate money. And that's the second mindset shift that I want to talk about today, which is the resource of time. Time is a finite resource, but oftentimes we find ourselves trading our time for money. Most people are then stuck in what I call the time trap. They basically wake up, they go to work, they get paid for the 8 hours that they work, they go home, maybe they watch Netflix, and then they repeat that day. They don't enjoy their jobs and they look forward to the weekends where they can truly live their life. They try to make more money by just working more hours or perhaps asking for overtime at their job, but you have to understand this is a trap. You only have 24 hours in a day, and there's a ceiling on how much you can make because of the limitation every human faces, which is the factor of time. Rich people are constantly trying to get away from this trap. Sure, there are some rich people who work hourly jobs like doctors, lawyers, computer engineers, etc. But on the whole, I would say that rich people are always trying to figure out how they can get their money to work for them so that they don't always have to be the sole person working to earn their income. Instead of asking, how can I work more hours? Ask yourself, how can I make more money while I sleep? And therein lies the entire passive income trend that you might see on the internet. People are trying to build systems that generate income without actually having to physically be there. For example, a rental property that makes you rental income, a business with employees that generates revenue and income while you're not there, investments in dividend-paying stocks that pay you while you sleep, or perhaps it's selling digital products with zero marginal cost of replication. One action item that you can do this week is to write down every hour that you work and how much you make from those hours. You want to calculate your true hourly rate and then ask yourself, how can I build a system that generates me 25%, 50%, or maybe even 100% of my active income? So that way I have passive income that doesn't require me to be there physically. The sooner you start thinking about how to replace your income without having to be there, the more likely you will actually achieve it. You might have to actually end up trading your time for money, especially early on in your career. But if you can somehow get to a place where you build up enough capital to start a pursuit that generates you passive income, then you're gonna have a much easier time being financially free in the future. I'm not saying that you should quit your job tomorrow and start a business, but what I am saying is that you could start small. Maybe it's creating a side hustle that takes 5 hours a week, but it could eventually replace 20% of your income. Or perhaps it's investing in dividend stocks that pay you quarterly, whether you're working or not. And once you have a system like that, you can start to reinvest any profits that you do receive to compound that system even harder. Perhaps one rental property becomes 2, and maybe by the time you retire, it's 4 or 6. Let me know in the comments if you've personally thought about this mindset shift and what you've done about it so far, if you have done anything about it. Now, here's the thing though, even the best systems are going to fail, especially if you're operating from a scarcity mindset instead of an abundance mindset, which is actually the third mindset shift today that we're discussing. This one hits close to home for me, and I want to tell you about the differences between a scarcity and abundance mindset. So let's compare two people with the same income. However, let's say one has a scarcity mindset and the other one has an abundance mindset about money. The one with the scarcity mindset might say to themselves, there's not enough money to go around, and feels anxious about running out of money. That could be true even if there is enough money to go around. When approached about investing their money, their instincts tell them to hold on to the money they do have and not risk it by investing, because taking on risk is a surefire way for them to lose it. So instead, they sit on their cash, they might keep it under a mattress, and this is rather illogical and irrational, but people do it anyway. And a lot of you guys watching might actually feel this way, especially if you have immigrant parents like I did. So in my life personally, my dad came to America without any money, and he's maintained a scarcity mindset around money his entire life. Since he grew up during a period of war and occupation in China, it became really ingrained in him that he should hoard all the resources that he actually did have, because money was so hard to come by when he was younger. Now, he did take some risks, and it translated to him being quite successful with money in his 40s and 50s. But after that, he started to become more risk averse, and he admitted this to me in a conversation that we had last year. This mindset stopped him from enjoying his life, even though he had enough resources to do so. And I didn't know this at the time, but that type of mindset was passed down silently to me. And that's something I've been trying to work on personally, which is shifting my mindset from the scarcity mindset to the more abundant mindset around money. With a scarcity mindset, the opposite can also occur as well. People may feel so stressed that they often spend their money on short-term, immediate gratification items in order to manage their stress. That comes out of this fear about not having any money in the future, so they decided to spend it right now. Both of these are flaws in that mindset, and that's why I think more wealthy and successful people ascribe to the abundance mindset. Someone with an abundance mindset firmly believes that there is enough money to go around now, and that in the future there are unlimited opportunities. As a result, they invest their money now, not for the fear of it going down, but because they see money as a tool to grow their wealth and build a better future. It isn't about being reckless with money, it's about being strategic. It's recognizing that the biggest risk is not losing the money, it's missing the opportunities because you're just too afraid to act. People with this mindset are more likely to save for long-term goals, recognizing that if they sacrifice some of their short-term gratification today, it'll lead to compounding wealth later on. This success builds confidence, further reinforcing the belief in the potential for growth, and therefore it becomes a self-fulfilling virtuous cycle. So here's your challenge. Next time you catch yourself thinking, I can't afford this, or that's not enough, you should probably flip that script. Try to ask yourself, how could I afford this, or what opportunities am I actually missing? I think that simple shift in language rewires your brain from scarcity to abundance. Now, this abundance mindset leads us perfectly into the fourth way rich people think differently, and this is how to think about your spending. Poor people might see everything as an expense, but wealthy people see potential investments. When you hand over $500 to anyone or anything, two completely different conversations could happen within your head. The average person might think, man, there goes my $500 from my bank account, but a mindset shift that you can make that a rich person might think is, how do I turn this $500 that I just spent into $5,000? In other words, is there a way to get this money to work for me? Let me give you another example of being investment minded. So pretend that you get invited to a networking event, but the ticket cost for this networking event is $895. I know that sounds crazy, but that's an actual ticket price of Vid Summit over in Dallas, which is later this year. It's an event for YouTubers and content creators alike. The average person might think to themselves, wow, I could buy an entire PS5, a month worth of groceries, and still have money left over with $895. But a wealthy person might think to themselves, well, all I really need to do is meet one person who I can connect with about YouTube and content creation, and that could be my next collaborator, perhaps a partner, or a mentor of mine. That one connection alone could change the trajectory of my entire social media career. At that point, this person is paying for an opportunity to meet perhaps someone in their network, and that $895, yeah, it could be for nothing, but it could also have a huge impact on the future growth of their career as well. I personally have attended VidSummit a few years in a row now, and every time I'm there, I meet someone that teaches me something brand new that completely changes my business. Do I think it's a waste of money or $895? At this point, definitely not. So when it comes to this mindset shift, definitely ask yourself the ROI question before you make any purchase. Ask yourself, what's the return on this investment? Now, if you can't answer that question, you're probably spending money and not investing money. It's completely fine to spend money. We're all naturally going to do that, but a good practice is to track how much of your money is being spent for spending's sake versus spent on an investment in your future self. So this week, before you make any purchase over $50, you might want to ask yourself, is this an investment or is this an expense? I think if you write down your answer for every one of those purchases, you'll be shocked at how this actually changes your buying decisions and your behavior. Now, quick note about everything that we've talked about in this entire video up until now, which is that you should know that even the best investments are going to fail if you have the wrong mindset about expectations. That brings me to my next mindset shift in today's video, which is short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. If you can resist the temptation of an immediate reward, you'll get a way bigger payoff later on in life if you are able to exercise delayed gratification. So for example, you know that $10 you might spend every single day without thinking, perhaps it's lunch, perhaps it's coffee, or maybe it's some little random thing on Amazon. Every time you make that choice instead of investing that money, you are literally sabotaging your future wealth. Now I know some of you are thinking, come on Humphrey, it's only $10. But here's the thing, people with a broke mindset usually think exactly like that. They will usually prioritize feeling good right now over building real wealth later, and it's all about instant gratification for them. The Money Guy Show has this incredible stat that blew my mind when I first heard it, which is that $1 at age 20 is worth $88 later on in life.
And look, we love it so much. It's the reason why you see us carrying these koozies around. It says this $1 beer cost me $88 because we know that a 20-year-old has a wealth multiplier of 88.35. That means that every dollar that a 20-year-old invests, if we assume a 10% rate of return compounded on a monthly basis, can turn into $88 by the time they get to 65. It is amazing how powerful your dollars can be if you give them enough time to grow.
So let me repeat that, $88 later on in life. Even if we're more conservative and we just assume an 8% annual return instead of their aggressive numbers, that $1 at age 20 is still worth about $32 in 45 years. That's why delayed gratification could be the key concept that makes you very, very rich later on in life. You have to give up some of the things now for a much better financial life later. Delayed gratification can also help you with your decision making, and I find in life whenever you have a decision that you're contemplating, if you stretch out your time horizon to 10, 20, or maybe even 30 years, your decisions in the moment will be a lot easier to figure out. So a perfect example of this is back when I was working at a mobile video game company, I had the chance to switch from monetization to the marketing team. The marketing team made more money up front, and honestly, I was quite tempted. But then I asked myself, do I see myself doing marketing in 20 years? The answer was not really. I never really saw myself doing marketing, and when you zoom out like that and use a longer time horizon, the right choice becomes a little bit easier. The point is, whether it's money or career decisions, you want to think long term. Your future self will thank you for it. There's another strategy you can employ here, which is called the Solomon's Paradox or the Solomon's Conversation, and I first heard about it from Alex Hormozi. Essentially, it's about a king named Solomon who is incredible at giving advice to people, but when it comes to taking his own advice, he didn't really know how to do that, and his personal life was in shambles.
People give significantly better advice about their own scenarios if they don't know it's about themselves. If you only just followed your own advice, it'd be way better than you currently are.
And so that can apply to a lot of decisions about your own life. Usually you are a better giver of advice than a receiver of your own advice, and Alex tries to solve this with a particular exercise.
A practice that I started doing, which is I have a coaching session with myself. Weird. I have a conversation with my future self, who's 85, and I ask him for advice on what I should do now.
This hypothetical conversation where you're talking to an older version of yourself is extremely helpful in figuring out what types of decisions you might want to pursue right now. What you would do for yourself now when looking back on your life from the perspective of your future self is an exercise that I think anyone can do. And I think it's really powerful because it can really shift your mindset on how you view your short-term versus long-term decisions. If you're able to prioritize long-term decision making, I think it's going to be a lot more fruitful for you, not only in life, but also your financial life as well. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know which mindset resonated with you the most today. And if you are interested in how to get ahead of 99% of people in life, as well as tips for building more wealth, you want to check out this video right here. I think it's one of the best underrated videos on the channel, so I hope to see you in there. or perhaps a future video on the channel. I appreciate you watching. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. All right. Peace.